Hi, I'm Candy Machine and welcome back to the Craft Cupboard. If you're one of my 12 viewers, welcome back. If you're a new viewer, please tell your friends. Okay, I'll do Alan Wake! Alan Wake 2 takes place between two main characters, Saga Anderson, an FBI agent who's sent to investigate a murder in Bright Falls, and Alan Wake, who's been stuck in the dark place for the last 9 years. So it only makes sense, being Alan Wake as a writer, to make a book Nook. To represent the two characters' different stories, I'm going to make a two-storied, excuse the pun, book Nook. The top part's going to be Saga's side of the tale, and the bottom part is going to be the dark place for Alan Wake. Let's get spooky. Pour yourself a nice drink, get cozied in, and let's build this together. I start by measuring the size of the books that will share shelf space with the book Nook. Once I have some measurements, I set to work in making myself a plan that Master IKEA himself would be proud of. Using XPS foam, I cut out the skeleton of the Nook and stick it together with masking tape to make sure all the parts fit together properly. A triumph. I cover the XPS foam in Mod Podge. This stiffens the foam slightly and gives me ever such a nice silky base that acrylic paint will want to be friends with. We'll start with the bottom story, which is Alan's floor. In an iconic moment in the game, you're sent to a very peculiar hotel room. The hotel has a very distinct 1960s decor that looks like it's seen better days, and a wood of rich mahogany. To keep it as close in dimensions to the game as possible, I've taken a screenshot which I'll use to trace over on my iPad, print and use as a cutting guide. And if you wouldn't mind just booping that like and subscribe button, you'd be my absolute champion of light. Using a ballpoint pen, I'll use the guide to mark out some balsa wood, making sure to get it wrong the first time. Then I'll cut the balsa wood with a nice blunt craft knife until the door leaves its hinges and my soul leaves my body in 1,000 tiny splinters. I've cut another identical layer to chunk it up a bit, and then I'll use the glue of the devil, super glue, to stick it together and hope that one day my finger will be free from the wood. I've used a ballpoint pen firmly on the door to create a slightly sunken look for the door panels. Using my handy guide and IKEA map, I'll cut out the door from what will be the back of the wall and make sure everything fits. Next up, we'll make the wood feature that divides the hotel corridors. There's that rich Matthew mahogany again. Same as before, cut with a craft knife, dye inside, followed by the devil's glue. I'm adding some panels with ice lolly sticks and coffee stirrers. Sam Lake would be proud. Now for that oh so rich monogamy colour to go on. I'm mixing up some dark cherry red with a dark earthy green and blast it on. I spent £300 on a Cricut machine so I could print 3 numbers to go above the door, but if you understand the value of money, you can just buy pre-printed numbers from any craft store for about 50p. After awkwardly reading and peeling them off, they're finally stuck onto some clear film to make the window above the door. Now this step is sort of unnecessary, you'll see why in a minute, but to keep it authentic I painted the walls with a nice nicotine-stained coloured paint. It was unnecessary because now I'm covering the walls in wallpaper. I got this from a book of scrapbook paper and just by pure coincidence it matches the one in the game almost perfectly. I cut it into panels so that with a bit of luck the edges will come out from the wall slightly to give it an old haggard look. I slap on some more Mod Podge and stick the wallpaper on. I'm not going to pay too much attention to lining the patterns up exactly. Lol, it says bottom. To make the floor, I'm simply using some self-adhesive red felt. Who knew crafting could be this easy? Let's stick that door on. Ooh, like a glove. Some more transparent film to make the windows in the corridor separator. Trim it down to size and job's a good one. I've just drawn the pattern straight onto the XPS foam with a paint marker and smash it on. I found these adorable little magnetic lights on Amazon. Finally, the ceiling. No need to spend too much time on this, no one's going to see it. Saga's story takes place in the real world. Bright Falls is a fishing town in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of the game involves traversing beautiful woodland. This is where Saga finds her first overlap. It's a tree called the Witch's Ladle. To make the scenery, I found some images of Pacific Northwest woodland on Google and printed them out on Bristol board, which is a thick, smooth map paper. Congratulations to the happy couple, I'm sorry I'm sending you into this hellscape. To make the tree, I start by making its skeleton out of a drink I had for lunch and a bog roll tube. I cut the back of the plastic cup at the correct angle for it to sit against the far wall, and then cut a lazily sized hole. I then glue them suckers together with spicy glue. I'll add in a mirror sheet inside the tree to give it the illusion of continuing through the back of the Nook. Satisfying. I want to put a spooky on-brand red glow coming from inside the tree, so I bought a pre-wired battery holder with a switch and attached a red LED. I didn't even zap myself. Take that, Mr. Ashburn, Year 8 electronics teacher. Then I glue him to the inside of the tree, making sure I have access to the switch. Time to attach my tree bones before turning him into a real tree using foam clay. Red, green and black make brown. Make a series of foam pepperomis in different widths and stick them on them bones to make something that vaguely resembles gnarly bark. While the foam clay is drying, I make some more tree trunks out of cut off XPS scrum, sanding them down a bit and adding a bark texture with a ballpoint pen. Lightly dab several layers of different shades of browns to give it a nice natural tree trunk colour. You can add some green if you're feeling adventurous. A top tip is to use as little paint as possible so it doesn't blob on. Speaking of blobbing on, I'm going to blob on some more foam clay around the edges of the Nook to make a bank up the sides, creating a sunken footpath for Saga. Using a cocktail stick, I'll use the same method of texturing to the tree. I purposely used too much paint on the first dab to demonstrate what not to do. Here comes the saucy part. To create mud, I'll combine fish tank gravel, some card that I shredded in my smoothie maker, and some Mod Podge to create a nice lumpy goop. I colour it using acrylic paint, but you know what else will probably work? Coffee grains. Just blob that goop on, footloose and fancy free with an old paintbrush. While the goop mixture is still wet, add a shrubbery and other plants to the bank. I use just cheap model terrain I found on Amazon. Another good place to find tiny plants is the fish section of the pet shop. Get the little plastic tank ones and cut them up. Next on the to make list is the Witch's Ladle tourist sign. I make it using balsa wood and stir sticks. Get that bad boy painted, and to make the tourist information board I found the original artwork on Google, so I printed it on Bristol board. There's a reason I'm drilling a hole in it with my Dremel. You'll know why if you played the game. Finally, add some teeny tiny terrain and stick her in. Silly Alan leaving pages around for people to find. I printed random book pages from the internet and added them to the goop soup. I bought an STL file online and got a friend to 3D print it for me. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any actual Saga models, so I found one as close as I could find. I'm painting her using Citadel paints from Games Workshop. I printed the FBI stickers on my Cricut, but in hindsight it would have been way less faff to just paint it on. and then plonk her unceremoniously in place. In the game, this particular area is flooded, so I'm using UV resin to make a dirty grit puddle. Then blast it with UV light and hope you don't inhale the toxic fumes. Finally, no Alan Wake scene would be complete without an Oh Dear Diner flask. I'm making this out of polymer clay, painting it with the tiniest paintbrushes I can find, then giving it a thin coat with clear nail varnish to make it glossy. I had a last minute idea and decided to make some Cult of the Tree symbols using cocktail sticks. I'll glue them together using UV epoxy. It ain't pretty, but it gets the job done. This curious phone-shaped hole in the back of the book nook is for top secret purposes that will be revealed in the beauty shots. Using a hot wire cutter, some sandpaper and a lot of praying, I made a mediocre curve to the back of the book nook. I cover it with hot glue, then cover it with EVA foam. No one will ever know what a hack job I did. Because I want the back to be removable, I'll be attaching it along with the side covers with magnets that I didn't realise were quite so small when I ordered them. I'm texturing the roof of the book nook and painting it to look like pages and attaching it to the top. You'll notice I glue on the Cult of the Tree symbols to the roof so they look like they're hanging from tree branches. And to finish her off, I've printed the book cover from Alan Wake's novel onto Bristol board to attach the EVA foam as a book cover. I found the art for this on good old Google again. And while I'm sticking it all together, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for joining me on this crafting journey, and please share it with anyone you think might get joy from it. Alan Wake 2 is a fantastic game, and if you enjoy single-player, story-driven adventure horrors, please consider checking it out. On to the bit you've been waiting for.